Hey, what is happening, Bulls and Bears? You watching Bull Boom Bear Bust? My name is JJ, and today is Tuesday, August 22nd, 2023. Back with another dose of economic reality. Today, we're going to get started with the housing market, but we want to talk about the dollar. We also want to talk about what's happening over in China, home prices, the homeless crisis, and a lot more. We'll see what else pops up here along the way. But first, please, if you like this channel, if you like what we talk about, please give us a thumbs up and a subscribe. It really helps us stick around, if you know what I mean. And I wanted to start this report off with housing. I was talking to a friend of mine back in Michigan. I still have a lot of friends back in Michigan, by the way. I went to college in the Kalamazoo area. Actually finished my degree out here in California, but started up there in like a community college. Anyways, that's not important. But I do have a lot of people that I still talk to back in Michigan. Now, the thing about Michigan is it used to be a place where I wanted to get a second home to go back during the summer. Winters in Michigan, I really can't stand it. To go back during the summer, though, I kind of always wanted a second home. But then prices started exploding in Michigan. And now prices in Michigan right now are where California was just about 5 years ago. That's how crazy home prices have gotten in Michigan, but it's not just Michigan. It's everywhere in the United States. Now, there's a couple states that are still pretty cheap. We'll talk about those here in a minute. But let's talk about home prices, the housing bubble. Everybody thought the housing bubble was going to bust. We had all these experts out there, real estate agents coming out of the woodwork saying, hey, it's a housing bust. So they could try to maybe gain some followers. And some of them did gain a lot of followers because they were agents and people, trusted them. But why hasn't the bubble burst? Well, I think we're one of the only channels here to really give you the inside scoop on that. And it's not really a secret, it's public data here. So let's go to the home ownership chart right now. And let me minimize myself down here so you can see the full chart here. And this is the home ownership rate. You see, we got up over 69%, almost 70% back before the housing bubble went bust in 2008, 2009. If you look here, 2020, we jumped up, home ownership jumped up. Now, what does that mean, home ownership? That means a owner occupied home. That means someone that bought their home to live in, right? So not an investor, not someone that's going to buy it and rent it out, not someone that's going to buy it as an Airbnb, none of those things. It's an owner occupied home. So we have not reached the level of home ownership that we did before the first housing bubble went bust. So what does that mean? Well, it's pretty simple. That means more investors and more people that have more money to invest own more of the homes now. And that's why we're not seeing the big foreclosure crisis like we did in 2008, 2009. Now, I think we're going to see a foreclosure crisis. I've been one of the few people that have said it's going to take a while to get here. This is a slow motion collapse. Even with mortgage rates doubling, look what's happening. I mean, home prices hit a new high just back in June, just a couple months ago, right? So mortgage rates have been high for a while now, and a lot of people are just shocked and surprised, how resilient the housing market has been. It's not going to be that way forever because people can't withstand these higher rates for, I don't think, very much longer. I think within a year to a year and a half, we're going to see this housing market completely change. Now, that's just if things continue the way they are, as far as the rates where they're at right now. But there could be something big that drops this whole market in a hurry. We're talking about war. We're talking about all the cyber threats out there. Lots of different threats out there that could bring this thing down. What we call black swan events. But aside from that, I've always continued to give my opinion that this is a slow motion collapse. And all you have to do is look around at the cost of living. Things aren't getting cheaper. Rents aren't getting cheaper. We'll talk about rents here in a little bit as well into more detail. Home prices not really getting that much cheaper. We see the Bay Area prices came down, but home prices in general, overall, the median home prices hit new records again back in June. Right, pretty insane, pretty crazy that hardly anyone expected this. But we told you here there was not going to be any housing market crash unless the black swan thing pops up. And now we have other inflationary forces to worry about, including the dollar getting dethroned. Now, do I think the dollar is going to be dethroned this month, with this BRICS meeting coming up or BRICS conference? No. In fact, I don't even think they're going to bring out any new currency. I think it's just going to be more turning their back on the dollar, I think they're going to go into more detail about the number of countries that are going to be trading outside of the dollar and trading within their own currencies. That's just what I think. I mean, please let me know what you think down in comments. Could they announce a whole new currency and say this is the gold-backed currency, and it's going to be this much gold for every dollar bill we print, or what's known as convertibility, meaning you can turn in your piece of paper for a certain weight of gold. I don't think it's going to be that. It's possible. That would be pretty amazing, and that would be the gold bug's dream come true. But I don't really trust these countries that much. I mean, do you really trust Russia and China to make the financial decision that's going to be actually good for the people, that's going to be fair and sound money, right? So I don't trust these countries that much at all. Not that I think U.S. Is very great and honest. All right. But back to home prices, we have this combination of deflationary forces, high interest rates, a maxed out population here with consumers under the most debt we've ever been under here as consumers, as potential home buyers or homeowners already. But even homeowners are getting pinched. The insurance costs, the maintenance, the cost of repairs. Of course, you have the elevated property taxes with the elevated property prices. The cost of transportation, energy to heat your home, to cool your home, it's all exploding and it's not coming down. And another thing we told you wasn't going to happen, inflation, cost of living. We're not going to see a big crash because we don't have enough production. We don't have enough people to work the jobs that are really needed. We need more mechanics. My bill for just fixing a car is a lot more than it used to be. And we don't have very many mechanics. And my mechanic, I'm lucky to get my car in there, call him 3 days in advance. Oh, I can get you in on, 3 or 4 days from now, maybe. It's like you have to make an appointment. It's almost like a doctor. Mechanics, automobile repair specialists, including the body shop workers. I'm not sure what their actual name is. Um, Painters, people that paint vehicles. I got a quote for almost $3,000 to repaint a Honda Pilot. We park one of our vehicles outside, and the sun beats down on the roof, pretty much all day. So the paint is faded on the top, so it looks kind of crappy, right? It's a good running vehicle, only has like 100,000 miles, but it just looks kind of crappy because the paint's all faded. So I got a quote like $3,000, um, and they wanted to repaint the whole thing. I'm like, can't you just paint the top, right? So maybe they're trying to just talk me into getting a whole paint job when I really don't need it, because the rest of the vehicle looks pretty good. It's just the top where the sun comes down. So I'm going to get some other quotes. Anyways, not important. But the point is, a quote of $3,000 to repaint the vehicle. So there's not enough people out there. There's not enough businesses out there that do these types of things to have prices come down very significantly. There's actually a shortage in a lot of different types of occupations and types of. There's a shortage of workers, for example, repair people. Here's another example. I've got a repair guy that I've used for some work around this house. Back when I was in property landlord, I used to have him work on other properties. Jack of all trades, right? He can fix anything. He can fix everything from screens, like putting new screens inside of the frames, paint, electrical, um, small remodeling, changing out carpet. He could jack of all trades. He can do a lot of things. And he's been looking for an apprentice. He's been putting ads out on Craigslist. He needs help. He wants somebody to work with him. He's going to pay him and train him at the same time. Pretty good opportunity. If I was a younger person, I might actually think about taking that trade up. It's pretty good. Get out of the house and go to other people's houses. Be out and about. Go to Home Depot. Everybody knows you. Hey, you're into Home Depot for the 12th time. Anyways, he can't find someone that wants to work. People just want to do different types of. They want to get different types of degrees where they don't actually have to get their hands dirty. I think you all know what we're talking about. Anyways, we're not going to see crashing prices because of that and many other reasons. So deflationary forces combined with inflationary forces, as the dollar gets dumped more and more, that is an inflationary force as the dollar loses its value. Now the Fed is in dollar protection mode. They're in inflation fighting mode. I think they should raise rates even higher. For example, we haven't seen home prices really come down. We just hit a new record a couple months ago. And by the way, let me stick to this article real quick here because I wanted to talk about the price of homes right now. Prices had been cooling year over year for 14 months Well, in June, they ticked back up year over year, breaking that 14-month cool off or the 14-month slide. And this is out of Investopedia, by the way. Here's one of the things they point out: homeowners with low fixed mortgages have been reluctant to sell because they'd have to get a new mortgage with a much higher rate if they sold and bought another home today. Now, let's talk about that because they missed something very important. If they sold and bought another home, what about rent? The reason a lot of these people don't want to sell is because rents are outrageous, right? So when you look at a typical market, renting is usually cheaper than buying a home. Not always, but historically, that's one of the big things that encourages people to sell. You have equity in your home, you cash out, now you're going to go rent, maybe downsize a little bit, and maybe your monthly payment will be half of what it was when you were paying a mortgage. But now that's not the case. Now, if you sell your home and you go rent a similar home or maybe even a smaller home, you're going to be paying almost as much as you were paying on the mortgage. So who wants to sell their home and go rent? So that's the problem when you have high rents and high home prices. If rents come down, that'll also help bring home prices down for that reason. But you think rents are going to crash when you have basically the world, wanting to come here to the United States because there's this global economic collapse happening right now. There's a reason why so many people want to come here. You would think that with prices where they are right now in the United States, the cost of living, the homelessness problem exploding in many cities, um, you would think that so many people wouldn't want to come here. But yeah, it's actually worse in other countries, so they want to come here. So why aren't high mortgage rates bringing the housing market down? Well, let's take a look back at 2004, 5, and 6, and 7. And we see that rates didn't even increase that much back then. They were in the mid 5% range up until about 2006. They jumped up to the mid 6% range. 6.7 looks like, yeah, 6.7 to about the peak there, which was 2008, 2009. So it wasn't a very big increase in mortgage rates back then, which was one of the things that brought the market down. Of course, there were a lot of mortgages that went bad because a lot of people went out and bought homes that they shouldn't have bought. Um, Homeowners, quote unquote, because they weren't really homeowners for long, many of them. Now we have a lot more investors that own homes. We showed you the home ownership rate at the beginning, but I wanted to point out the chart here and how long it took there. So from the mid 5% range, looks like 2005, 2006 maybe, up to where the rates jumped up to 6.5%. We were there for about 2 years. We had to have 2 years of elevated rates before the housing market started correcting in mid to late 2008, from what I recall. Now we've only had these high rates since late 2021, and so really we've only been a year and a half approximately with these elevated rates, and we've only recently spiked over 7%. So it's still going to be a while before this plays out, before homeowners are going to really feel the pinch, so to speak, with the cost of living. Even people that got in at low mortgage rates are not going to be able to escape the cost of living. It affects everybody. Just because you got in at a low mortgage rate doesn't put you out of reach of other costs, and just the cost of keeping a roof over your head, the cost of running a household. So yes, we will see a correction, but let's talk about what's affordable now, what's cheap now, and we're going to get into the homeless crisis here in a minute. But what's cheap now? I just wanted to bring up here the top 5 cheapest states to live in, and let me know, please, down in the comments. Let me know if you would want to live in any of these states, or maybe you do live in one of these states. And let's just go over the top 3 here. The number 1 cheapest state is West Virginia, and they're looking at a typical home price there of $146,578. Mississippi, the second cheapest, $162,000. Arkansas, number 3, $178,000. Top 4 and 5 were actually Louisiana and Oklahoma, all southern states. Look at that. But cheap home prices aren't the only thing to look out for. There's lots of other things you need to look out for. That's the reason why everyone hasn't moved to these states. And that's why home prices are still fairly cheap, because there's reasons why people don't want to live there. Nothing wrong with these states. In fact, I've been to every one of these states and I've spent some significant time in some of these states. West Virginia, I took a trip there many years ago with a friend of mine, and I believe it was Huntington, West Virginia, and stayed there for a few days. Had a lot of fun. The mountains, beautiful, nice people. But these places are cheap for a reason, usually not a lot of jobs. A lot of the jobs are concentrated in the bigger cities, and that brings people to the bigger cities and more people, more economic activity. But a lot of the economic activity is people just swiping credit cards, going into debt. Most of you know this. So these city hubs and these places that are economically thriving, a lot of times they're just thriving because they have big populations that are taking on a lot of debt, and that creates jobs. When people are swiping cards all around town, you're going to have people needed to work the cash registers, to be the servers, especially in the service sector economy. So, again, the debt um, bubble and all the issuance of debt and all the credit that's extended from the banks that create the money at the click of a mouse, that creates the economic boom. But things are slowing down because people are getting close to the end of their financial rope, so to speak. Still on the topic of housing and unaffordable housing, homelessness. Let's talk about what's happening in Denver. The Denver mayor wants to spend $7 million on tiny homes for the homeless. To me, this is excellent news. I mean, I've been talking about this for a long time. Can't we get a Home Depot shed or something for these homeless people that you see camped out on sidewalks, especially in San Diego and LA and San Francisco and out here out west, it's really noticeable. And something I really noticed coming from Michigan, I hardly saw any homeless people in Michigan. I think even if I was homeless in Michigan, because the winters are so cold, I probably would collect enough cans to get on a bus and probably come out to California. Probably not Arizona though; it's just too hot there. I'd probably come to California. So I think that's one of the reasons why um, you see so much homeless out here in California. Yes, the policies are not the best. You have the cost of living that's too high, but I think a lot of homeless people come here because they don't want to be freezing cold in one of these cold northern states. But the Denver mayor wants to spend $7 million on tiny homes. Um, just find a plot of land. There's plenty of land right now with all the businesses and warehouses that are vacant. Put some tiny homes there. The problem is you have so many people hooked on substances and addicts that you're going to need some sort of maybe a whole separate police force for any sort of tiny home community, right? So then it gets even more complicated. But if you could pick out the people that aren't totally whacked out of their mind, on chemicals or alcohol or both, um, then it might be a very good way for getting a roof over these people's heads and getting them off the sidewalk. And business owners are complaining with the people hanging outside of their businesses, but why don't they talk to their mayors and their leaders about getting tiny home villages or something? So, what do you guys think about this? Will it work, or will it just be too much crime and too much to manage all this? With the police force that's going to be needed, or maybe not. Maybe if they can pick the people that are actually not addicts, people that just fell on hard times because of just the lack of income and they couldn't keep up with the cost of living. Maybe it'll still work. Let's take a listen to this clip here out of Denver 7.
Homelessness need a shelter that is better than a sidewalk and faster than the permanent solutions that can take months or even years to build.
A Washington state-based social purpose company known as Pallet could be weeks away from shipping hundreds of tiny homes like these to Denver. The mayor's office is asking the city council to approve a $7 million contract with Pallet for 200 tiny homes. Pallet says its tiny homes are prefabricated and can be assembled in under an hour. They'd be located in 3 micro-communities, with plans to expand from there.
We're looking to create 7 to 10 micro communities, and so that's sort of the scale that we're looking at.
Cole Chandler, the mayor's senior advisor on homelessness, says they're also looking for organizations to operate the micro communities and to provide wraparound services to help residents get back on their feet.
Basically, we're asking organizations to bid and let us know what it takes to serve these communities.
The mayor has pledged to put a micro.
Okay, so it's good to see. We've talked about stories like this here and there, but we'll see how this one works out. Why aren't the leaders out here in California proposing this? Why do we not have tiny home villages? I don't know. With all the money we send all over the world, You would think with 32 something trillion in debt now, is it 33 yet? I haven't checked the chart. Doesn't matter. It's an enormous amount of debt, regardless. With that amount of debt, you would think that we'd be the number one country for housing um, people, living on the street. There would be no homeless. With this level of debt, you would have thought that the money would have been put to have a pretty good standard of living for a lot of people. Now, a lot of people do have a standard of living that's pretty good right now because of the ability to borrow money. But when that ends, it's going to be big, big trouble, folks. They're going to have to come out with a lot of rescue programs soon. They're going to have to cancel mortgages, cancel rents, cancel car payments, cancel loan payments once again to keep this default tsunami from happening. Do you think the leaders are going to just sit back and let everybody default and lose their homes and get kicked out of their apartments? No, I think they're going to come out with more rescue programs, and I think something big is going to happen to give cover for that or give the excuse for that. I think it's going to be the banks go dark, some sort of grid down situation, if you know what I mean. So everybody prepare. Please have at least 30 days living expenses and essential items at your disposal, out of the system, out of the bank. Have cash, have food and water, at least 30 days, preferably 6 months, because we're headed into some dangerous times. If we see more supply chain issues because of who knows, health crisis 2.0 could be right around the corner. I have a feeling, folks. So, anyways, let me know what you think down in comments. The home prices, the homelessness, the home ownership rate. Why are we not seeing foreclosures? Well, I think a big part of it is because less people own their homes now than back in 2007, 2008. More investor owned properties, and you're going to see foreclosures happen much more slowly, right? So, what do you think about all this? Please let me know down in the comments, and we'll see everybody here next time. Big love. Keep stacking. Bye for now. Peace.